All right, welcome. This is the Knowledge Mobilization Flash Talk series. This is a project of the WCER clinical program and the Wisconsin Evaluation Collaborative in the School of Ed at UW-Madison. We are in partnership with the Department of Public Instruction and the Institute for Education Sciences with the U.S. Department of Education. The format is we will start with a 5-minute flash talk from our co-presenters with a hard stop at the end of those 5 minutes, followed by a prompt that they will give us for small group discussion. And then we will break into small group discussions for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then followed by about 5 minutes of question and answer or just large group reflection and conversation. So with that, I want to introduce our co-hosts. We've got Bryn, Orum, and Mark Dziedzic from PLACE, which is an entity within the School of Education. They are going to talk about the Youth Adult Partnerships Framework. And with that, I will pass it over to Mark and Bryn. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much, Annalie, for that introduction and for inviting us to talk about youth and adult partnerships. My name is Bryn Orum, and I work with Mark Dziedzic in PLACE for the Greater Madison Writing Project. And before that, I was a co-founder and teacher at Clark Street Community School in Middleton, which we'll talk a little bit more about during our talk today. Mark?
I'm Mark Dziedzic. I work at PLACE and Education Outreach and Partnerships before it transitioned to that in PLACE as the outreach office for the School of Education. Helped start the Greater Madison Writing Project here 10 years ago, and prior to that was an elementary and middle school teacher in Beloit and Denver. And really happy to be here with everybody today.
Right. So today we're talking about the Youth and Adult Partnership Framework. And in addition to working with this framework at Clark Street Community School and with some researchers and scholars who have studied this at UW-Madison, including Shep Zeldin, who is for me the father of youth and adult partnerships. Mark and I are working together with a group of educators this year who are seeking to engage youth in partnerships, even in virtual learning through their education. So before we dig too deeply into that, we want to go on and share the definition of youth and adult partnerships. So Annalie, could we see the next slide? Thank you. So a professor emeritus of the School of Human Ecology, Shep Zeldin, always talks to me about youth and adult partnerships as youth and adults working together on things that matter to them. And I think while that's really simple, it's one of the best definitions of youth and adult partnership work. In youth and adult partnerships, all individuals are engaged in the work, whether that's planning, decision-making, or action. And individuals who are a part of the community of the partnership are really fitted to opportunities to contribute that align with their interests, skills, and abilities. Youth and adult partnership really pushes us to move beyond the idea of just including youth voice into a conversation, but to really engage and work together and recognize that our roles are different as youth and as adults, but both roles are important in achieving the goals that we have for our work. Can we see the next slide, Annalie? Thank you. So while youth and adult partnerships are often studied as they exist in community organizations, perhaps a neighborhood group or a religious institution where youth and adults come together, Shep and his team has recently done more work in studying youth and adult partnerships as they benefit schools and students in educational institutions. So the graphic that you see here on the slide is done from some school-based research work, including at Clark Street Community School, of which there are some cute kids pictured alongside. And what the research found was that in school settings, youth and adult partnership benefits student learning. Students who experienced high voice were more likely to be able to be cognitively engaged in their schoolwork. But when students also perceived that their teachers had created a sense of safety and supportive relationships, they also experienced a high level of emotional connecting and mattering. And this in turn contributed even more to engagement in their schoolwork. There's a study that this is referenced in that is going to be linked in some materials for folks if you're interested in learning more about this particular research. But before I run out of time, let's take a look at our last slide about YAP. And just acknowledge some of the core ingredients for this work. It's important to remember that not all of us, whether youth or adults, have the same skills. So we need lots of different entry points for youth and adults to participate in work that they're doing together. Youth and adult partnerships and truly partnering and working together is not the norm for most people. So it's going to take some structure, some role clarity, and some opportunity to dedicate time and resources to grow together to determine what matters most and where youth and adult partnership is most needed in any given institution. Collective mentoring really acknowledges that while youth are often seen as the mentee and adults as the mentor, that when we're engaged in partnership, everyone is learning and everyone has things to share and learn with each other. These core ingredients are from another great resource called Being YAP Savvy, and that's we'll make sure that that link is shared as well with folks who are interested in using that as a resource to begin thinking about practicing and learning more about youth and adult partnerships in your own organizations. And I think I'm under my 5 minutes, so Annalie will be so proud. As we transition and work our way into discussion groups, there's 2 questions that we have to consider with the groups that you're a part of. After doing some introductions, when you get into your small groups, it would be great for folks to do some reflection and think back. In your youth, where did you have opportunities to partner with adults to work on things that mattered to you? And how do you think those experiences impacted you? It's not important that these are school-based experiences. Some of us probably experienced these outside of school. If you did experience them in school, that's great. Please share those. And then the second question to move on to in your small groups is, in your organization or organizations that you work with, what are the areas that would benefit the most from engaging youth as partners? And what might some of the benefits be? Or the impact overall for youth and adults and your organization as a whole. So I look forward to talking with some of you in small groups and hearing more about the discussions when we come back together.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. So I'm going to be sending you into small group discussions, and we will seed those discussions with those prompts, and then we'll come back with about 5 minutes left to discuss as a large group. So have fun.
All right.
I think we're going to stay out here for a couple minutes, just let them get going, rolling with questions before.
Yeah.
So they don't look to us to.
How do we do, Annalie?
You're muted.
Thank you. No, that was awesome. That was great. Thank you.
I had a timer running.
I did too.
Start pestering you.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was awesome. I'm just looking at, I'm like very stressed about making sure that I have the right people in with the interpreter. I'm just looking at the breakout rooms to make sure, because one of the people who they said was going to need it, I don't see on the list. Like it
Yeah.
hasn't
And
showing
that's,
up.
yeah.
So Scott was one, right? And then
he registered twice. So maybe it's actually
maybe
what
that other
happened with
person
you all.
is
Yeah. Good point.
coming in on that one.
I am going to go in because one of the groups ended up only having 2 people.
I can jump over to that.
Actually, why don't, so in both cases, if you all both jump into the rooms that you were in, it'll even out the numbers a little bit.
Okay.
All right,
Cool. Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
no problem.
Was I in room 1?
Yes.
I think so, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thanks.